Good morning to all the dignitaries, guests, and students with great joy and immense pleasure. This is Kashish Kunj, a second-year student of Naval Architecture and Ocean Engineering Department. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all present over here for the inaugural ceremony of Wavez' 2023. Now, I would like to introduce Anushka Jain, the Secretary of Team Oceana. Now, I would like to introduce Anushka Jain, the Secretary of Team Oceana, Rajiv Sharma, the HoD of Department, Admiral Karambir Singh, PVSM, AVSM, ADC, and the former Flag Officer of Indian Navy, Professor Kamakoti, the Director IIT Madras, and Mr. Navneet, the Secretary of Team Oceana. I request the audience to rise up for the invocation song. Thank you. What a patriotic start. I take immense pleasure in welcoming you all to Wavez', the annual Department Fest of Ocean Engineering. After the long pandemic period, we are back with a new edition of Wavez'. But before Wavez' emerged as India's biggest student-run ocean engineering fest, there's more to its picture that meets the eye. Wavez' started out as the annual techno-cultural festival of the Department of Ocean Engineering in 1999. Having been in dynamic and engaging space that held a lot of interesting events, workshops, and lecture series, Wavez' was also the hub for fun, exciting cultural events back during its peak. After 5 years, we are proud to reinitiate Wavez', bringing to you Wavez' 2023 Nautical Lexus. Can we have a big round of applause? This year, we are thrilled to announce the presence of Admiral Karambir Singh, PVSM, AVSM, ADC, and the former Flag Officer of Indian Navy, who has joined us for the event, adding an extra layer of magnificence to the occasion. Admiral Karambir Singh is a former Flag Officer who was the 24th Chief of the Naval Staff of Indian Navy. Prior to his ascension, Admiral Singh served as the Vice Chief of Naval Staff and Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Eastern Naval Command. He is known for his distinguished service and leadership skills. But what sets him apart is his reputation as a grey eagle. a term used to describe senior officers who possess exceptional strategic and tactical acumen. He also the chairmanship of National Maritime Foundation, New Delhi in January 2022. He is an alumnus of MBA Kharagpur, the Defence Service Staff College, Wellington, and College of Naval Warfare, Mumbai. The Admiral was commissioned into the Indian Navy in July 1980. As a naval aviator, he earned his wings in 1981 as a helicopter pilot. He was also the Director General of the Project Seabird, which is the third largest naval base in India. On 23rd March 2019, he was named the CNS of Indian Navy, and this is for the first time a helicopter pilot has become the Chief of Naval Staff. Throughout his career, he has demonstrated exceptional leadership skills and a deep commitment to the Navy's core values. During 39 years of his service, he has received several awards, which include Param Vishis Seva Medal and Ati Vishis Seva Medal. He has also received the Operation Vijay Medal and Operation Parakram Medal for his excellent service during the Kargil War in 1999 and 2001 to 2002 Pakistan-India standoff. We are honored and equally excited to have you here with us today. Now I request Professor Kamakoti to hand over the bouquet to our chief guest. We are glad to invite our beloved director, Professor Kamakoti, our inspiration, and the one who ignites our motivation with his constant support. Now request Professor Rajiv Sharma, HoD, to hand over the bouquet to Professor Kamakoti. Where there is a will, let there be light. Let us start Wavez with the auspicious lighting of the lamp. I request our chief guest to light the lamp and share with us their blessings. Next up, we have with us our very own HoD, Professor Rajiv Sharma, the man behind Wavez and Oceana. I request him to share a few words about Wavez and department to the audience.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all in the Student Technical Festival of the Department of Ocean Engineering, IIT Madras. It has been done after the pandemic. So first time after 3 years we are back to the offline mode. It's a festival organized by the students for the students community, and in the department and similarly in the institute, we believe giving absolute freedom to our students. We very strongly believe that we exist in this institute because we have students here. If you don't have students, we will not exist here. So we allow them to grow as individuals, grow as leaders, grow as heroes, and we are proud to state that IIT Madras believe in making heroes, making students successful, and grow in different dimensions of life. It is important for you that apart from academics, you learn about the field, how the field is applied to solving problems of national, international, state level, and contribute from your side whatever little you can in the development of the society, development of the nation, and your overall development. So pursue happiness, pursue your dreams, be happy in whatever you are doing, develop your skills, be it technical, be it managerial, be it leadership, and believe us, we will support you in every endeavor of yours. I wish you all the best, and I wish this cultural and technical event a great success. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request our beloved director, Professor V. Kamakoti, to address the gathering.
So very, very good morning to all of you. Very happy that Waves is happening after 4 years of exile, and I'm sure this is going to be a very technically rewarding. I don't just want to call it as an event. I think it's now become a festival. This is how Mardi Gras started, with a very humble beginning of, I remember some director mentioned it was around 3,000 rupees budget, and today Sarang's budget crosses 2 crores. And many department festivals also just started as a simple, small event, but what is very constant at IIT Madras is growth, right? And we have seen massive growth, and I'm sure today this particular ocean engineering department annual fest is now becoming a sort of a very technically strong symposium, and also something that you all get together and exchange ideas. I'm very happy to have Admiral here. Sir, as we are progressing towards the 2047, we have 25 more years. We need to establish supremacy in technology, and one of the important ingredients there, other than all the technology and innovation, is patriotism. Your presence, I'm sure, sir, is going to instill a lot more of patriotic feeling for all of us here. Thank you very much for coming today, sir. Friends, India is what is unique about our country, we have an ocean named after our country, the Indian Ocean. I don't think any other country has an ocean named after them. We have so much of coast available, and I must also proudly say, I used to tell all your faculty and your HoD that Indian Ocean can also be renamed as Indian Institute of Technology Madras Ocean, because almost all the ports that are there right from the northeast side all the way to Gujarat, around the garland for India, I think all the ports we are doing some, at least minimum 3 or 4 projects for each one of them. I think that is the exposure that your department has with the ocean. I think you should be very proud of it, and you should also be very thankful to God that you did get a seat in ocean engineering at IIT Madras. I hope you all agree with me now. In addition, we have very interesting projects that are of national importance. Number one is that we need to work on offshore energy development, specifically offshore windmills. I think that's going to be extremely important, and that involves massive structures and massive electrical engineering also, because one thing is to generate that energy, another is to evacuate that energy. Similarly, on the ocean side, we are also looking for sea launch of rockets. Rocket is becoming extremely important. Low Earth orbit rockets are crucial for countries' economic development, and I'm sure there also we have a major role to play. And then, of course, we need to build our own submarines, not just for defense, but also, suppose today I want to lay an underwater cable from, say, India to even as close as, say, Sri Lanka, or even India to our own islands, Andaman. I think we are hiring, and that costs us several crores of rupees. I think we need to have our own submarines. We need to have our own ships. I'm sure we are taking large steps in this direction, and I'm sure these type of symposiums, the technical exposure that you will get here, the collective ideas that you get here, I'm sure we will surely be in a position to develop these technologies. We have already Agnikul, who are ready to send rockets at low Earth orbit, and a sea launch facility from ocean engineering will complete the cycle. And I'm sure that at least some 10 to 20 startups will come in the next 5 to 6 years from IIT Madras, and those startups will define what we are in the country in terms of technology 25 years down the line. With all these good wishes and good intentions and good vision, I congratulate the organizers for putting this wonderful program. I'm sure this is going to be technically rewarding. Now we have a very big challenge of bringing all of us together to meet at a common place, socialize. I think this will also serve that purpose. Thank you very much for inviting me. And again, Admiral Saab, thank you very, very much for coming here. And I'm sure your presence will inspire all of us much more. Thank you.
Thank you for gracing our event with your presence, sir. I would like to humbly request the esteemed chief guest, Admiral Karambir Singh, to kindly address the audience.
Just wanted to use this. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. Professor Kamakoti, Director, IIT Mumbai, the Head of Department, and the faculty of the Department of Ocean Engineering, and most importantly, all of you, the brilliant students of IIT Madras. Good morning to all of you, and I'm extremely delighted and honored to get this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. I thought I'll briefly touch on two issues today. One is that, why the importance of the oceans for the country's prosperity and security. That is one. And second, how STEM, or science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, can help our country achieve this goal of prosperity and security in the maritime domain. I was browsing through the Wavez' 2023 merchandise, and I saw this T-shirt with a caption in front of it, which read "Thalassophile." It had printed on it. I was very pleasantly surprised because Thalassophile means lover of the seas, and most people in this country are not aware, or they seldom recognize the ancient thalassocracies that we had in this country. And you are aware that thalassocracy means a maritime kingdom or empire. You had the Cholas, you had the Kalingas, who led this country to prosperity in the ancient times. We had our ancient Indians had deep linkage with the sea. They wrote hymns in praise of Lord Varuna, the god of the oceans, or Lord of the oceans, and verses in dedicated to goddess Aditi, who invoked her, invoking her benediction for safe sea journeys. Are you all aware of the Lothal dry dock, which is 4,500 years back? We had tremendous maritime infrastructure in Lothal, and today the government of today is building a museum there, a maritime museum, and I think it will be worth a visit by everybody. The Indian Navy is also involved in one of the stalls or one of the exhibits there. So maritime trade was a predominant characteristic of ancient India, and that led to our prosperity. At that stage, 25% of world's GDP was generated in India. Not only that, we had cultural linkages, ideological linkages, religious linkages because of this trade through the seas. I went to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Have you heard of that? Yeah, so there went and saw the temple there, and such an accurate depiction of Ramayana. And another thing that I was quite surprised when I went to South Korea, in one of the provinces, nearly 15% or 20% of the Koreans owed their ancestry to India, because the princess of Ayodhya, she went and married one of the princes in South Korea. So there was so much of interaction through the seas. And of course, we sadly also know that we lost our independence because we became weak at sea. And thereafter, East India Company came in, various European powers came in, and we lost our independence. So this was the aim of just sort of bringing history to you, to tell you that there is a lot of linkage between the oceans and our prosperity. And today when we look at it, and I'll rattle off certain statistics, seas have become even more important to us. Your director had also mentioned to you the number of the large coastline. Today we've recalculated the coastline. We've been saying 7,500. Now it is nearly 11,000 when we do it more accurately through satellites, etc. We've got very large number of major and non-major ports, 13 major ports and 205 non-major ports, 1,200 islands and islets on both sides, the Laccadives and the Andamans. We've, have you heard of the exclusive economic zone? That's the zone about 200 nautical miles into the sea where the entire water column and the seabed is yours, is the economically yours. So that is nearly 2/3 of our land mass. And when we add continental shelf, 1.2 million square kilometers, you'll actually have the sea area equal to the land mass of India. And that is actually the economic map of India. We are so used to seeing this peninsula, but actually that is our land. And I think as we start seeing what kind of resources are there, if you look at the seabed, there are the polymetallic nodules which have cobalt, nickel, copper, manganese in large numbers. 380 million tons of polymetallic nodules on the seabed. And the director was saying that when seabed, not only for laying cables, for seabed exploration, you will require deep submersibles and ability to grab the nodules and bring them up. So that is the kind of importance that the seas, and nickel we are almost entirely importing, and it's got tremendous applications, as you know, in science. Of course, as the director pointed out, the offshore wind energy potential is extremely high, 127 gigawatts. And our entire projected requirement is 205 gigawatts for our country. So that's the kind of immensity. So what does all this data mean to us? It means that the well-being and security of our country is inextricably linked to the seas. And that is my first point. And if you want to become a 5 trillion economy by 2025 and go beyond that, we will have to do this through the seas, whether it's markets, resources, or the energy to drive this economy. It will all have to come from the seas. So the second point I just wanted to talk about was about STEM. And I want to tell you that we'll be able to use the seas to our advantage only and only if we have a strong scientific base that underpins our maritime endeavors. And I've seen the websites of the Department of Ocean Engineering, and I was very interested in going through the Maritime Autonomous Systems, the National Technology Center for Ports, Waterways and Coasts. So a lot of good work is going on by the Department of Ocean Engineering. I think last month they had a meeting with the industry, and that is, I think, the way to collaborate. It is actually a triangle of the academia, the industry, and the armed forces when you look at the defense ecosystem. And academia is very important. If linkages are made correctly, we can do wonders. As a former naval chief and a practitioner, I thought I'd offer some views on the inputs that STEM can be, how STEM can be used to leverage our maritime prowess or maritime security. First, it's important, though, China is our pacing challenge, but it's important to see where they've done things right. And one place where they've done things extremely well is in the civil military fusion aspect. And they have this civil MCF, or military civil fusion strategy. It has got some 6 interrelated efforts, but I think one is important for all of us, and I'll mention that. It is integrating and leveraging science and technology innovations across military and civilian sectors. This is extremely important. We had started off well after independence. India, our forebearers, visionary leaders had realized the importance of this civil and military interface. We set up the DRDO in 1958. Department of Ocean Engineering was set up half a century ago in 1977. But I still feel we have a long way to go if you have to catch up with the countries like China and the US. And of course, a lot of effort is being made through Atmanirbharta, the government's focus on Atmanirbharta, Startup India, which has fostered the Defense India Startup Challenge Series, focus on self-reliance, innovation. They are all re-energizing defense R&D. And I've got, we've started, as far as the Navy is concerned, we started pretty early. We started in around late 1950s, 1960s to start making our own indigenous ships. We made our first ship in 1961 or thereabouts. That's the time when the Ambassador car was being made in India. So, and thereafter we got a Directorate of Indigenization, and in 2020 we got this Naval Innovation and Indigenous Organization, or NIIO in short. This is in 2020. Why did we do this? Because for navies, technology is absolutely critical. It makes a difference to us between victory and defeat at sea. And we have been therefore very proactive in pushing for new technologies through indigenization, innovation, which will enable us to perform our role more much better. So I just thought I'll just flash some of the roadmap, the Naval Science and Technology roadmap. This is what we are looking at. Perhaps in your own time you can have a look at what all is of interest to the Navy. It covers nearly everything that you can think of. And also these are the focus areas on how the Navy wishes to employ technology for its operations. So this is just a quick rundown. You can later on take a look at it in your own time. So if I was to look at a future Navy, or I have been looking at the future Navy in my previous job, I would look at it as a highly networked Navy, network-centric Navy. Everything is built around this large network wherein all platforms are linked together, whether they are airborne, in the air, or on the surface of the seas, or underwater. We look at containerized solutions wherein packages of say minesweeping, etc., are put in a container and can be shifted from platform to platform. A lot of effort has to go into stealth technology, composites, unmanned UAVs, USVs, UUVs, and I understand you have an exhibition on this, which will perform patrols, pollution control, mine clearance, explosive disposal, logistics, etc. The future Navy will have long-range intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platforms, like the high-altitude, long-endurance UAVs, high-altitude pseudo-satellites, which will have over-the-horizon long-range data-linked ordnance and vectors, cognitive long-range communications, immersive simulators, blended fleets that leverage AI, networks, etc., and of course a whole host of satellites. So to bring this to the notice of everybody concerned, in the Navy had last year hosted a seminar, and NIIO, I've got the head of NIIO, Commodore Golaya, could just stand up, and so he's come here. He heads the Navy's indigenization and innovation organization, and I think you'll have a lot to discuss with him. So we had a seminar called Swavalamban, or self-reliance, and we had the 7th series of the Defense India Startup Challenge, which aimed at developing at least 75 indigenous technologies and products. And its spectrum is wide, from AI, autonomous unmanned systems, and IT. So this is what I wanted to share with you today in this limited time. I would like to conclude by saying that 21st century is going to be the centuries of the sea, or century of the seas. On the one hand, we'll be looking at ideas to mitigate climate change, sea level rise. A lot of infrastructure will have to be climate change resistant, ocean warming, etc. On the other hand, we'll be looking at sustainable use of the seas for food, mineral resources, energy and trade, or the larger blue economy. And of course, this is a golden opportunity this century to make India a potent maritime power through intelligent use of technology. All these areas, the Department of Ocean Engineering will play a crucial role. So the Institute's enduring motto of Siddhir Bhavati Karmaja urges all of us towards action, because success is only attained through action. And it is my earnest hope that the past, present, and future alumni of IIT and the Department of Ocean Engineering will lead the country's scientific endeavor in preserving and promoting the nation's maritime interest. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. It was really a motivating and enlightening speech. I'm sure Waves will reach great heights with your blessings. Now, I request our director to hand over a little token of love, a memento, to Admiral Karambir Singh on behalf of our institute and Team Oceana. Today, we have Commodore A.P. Golaya with us. I request Professor Kamakoti to hand over a memento to him. Now, a short video shall be played on behalf of our beloved sponsor, the Royal Institution of Naval Architects, London, UK, where they have shared their support and encouragement through the CEO, Mr. Chris Boyd.
My name is Chris Boyd. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Royal Institution Naval Architects. I am a naval architect, engineer, and systems integrator, so I feel at home here today with the Oceana team, students, alumni, and distinguished guests. It's an absolute honour for the Royal Institution of Naval Architects to support Wavez'23, the annual flagship festival of the Department of Ocean Engineering at IIT Madras. I understand it's the largest in IITM's history. So I look forward to celebrating excellence and innovation in naval architecture, ocean engineering, and maritime with you. Moreover, I would like to really commend Oceana, the official student body of the Department of Ocean Engineering at IIT Madras, for your hard work, enthusiasm, and energy. You really are an inspiration to us all. Your ethos and vibrancy brings together like-minded individuals, teamwork and collaboration, enterprise, and importantly, friendship, which is something I've cherished throughout my own naval architecture, ocean engineering, and maritime journey. So whilst we celebrate the festival and awards, I thank you for delivering such a wonderful event for us all to enjoy. I must provide a special mention for distinguished guests and acknowledge their support, contribution, and enthusiasm. Without them, this event would not be able to take place. So firstly, to the IITM Director, Professor V. Kamakoti, the Dean of Students, Professor Nilesh J. Beza, the Head of the Department, Professor S. Nallayarasu, our honourable guests, Admiral Karambir Singh, who's Chief of Naval Staff and Flag Officer, Indian Navy retired, Chairman of the National Maritime Foundation, Professor Kamakoti, and the Vice President India for the Royal Institution Naval Architects, Professor Kamakoti. My personal thanks to Mr. V. Bharath Mohan and Mr. Schreider at Oceana for working closely with my team. Not only have you organised such a celebration festival for fellow students in the maritime community, but you've also found time to continue your studies. How you have managed this, I really do not know, so well done. My personal thanks as well to Mr. Ashok Kumar, who's a PhD fellow researcher who's Associate Member of the Royal Institution of Naval Architects at the Marine Hydrodynamics and Simulation Laboratory. As ever, your support is tremendous. It's very important that I provide a special mention to the main sponsors, as their support and contribution really does allow the conference to thrive. So firstly, to Invent Ocean, with their USPs, do it right the first time, think outside the box, and automate is something for the students to consider. And also to IITM for your commitment, reliability, and quality to offshore marine structures is an inspiration to all the students attending at this festival. The Royal Institution of Naval Architects was founded in 1860, and it really was founded to promote the art and science of ship design and construction. Today, we're an international professional organisation whose 10,000 members are involved at all levels in the design, construction, repair, and management of marine vessels and structures in over 90 countries. We have 36 centres of knowledge. We cover the globe in 6 regions, and we have international links, and it's my absolute honour that Vice President of India is Professor Krishnan Kutty. So, as I sign off with a very short video just showing you what RENA does, enjoy the festival and celebrations, and from the Royal Institution of Naval Architects, thank you for inviting us. The Royal Institution of Naval Architects was established in 1860. So RENA has evolved with the times over its 160 years to be at the forefront of innovation, disruptors and enablers. Whether it's the design, construction, operation or maintenance of marine vessels, that's what we do. The Royal Institution is the governing body for technical excellence and prowess within naval architecture and maritime engineering. RENA is at the forefront of learning and education. We look at the continual professional development of all our members and all our engineers. Sustainability within RENA is the big question. Decarbonisation, net zero. The Royal Institution is changing. We are modernising the way we look and communicate with members. So this is my call to arms as Chief Executive. Please come and join the Royal Institution of Naval Architects. My name is Chris Boyd. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Royal Institution of Naval Architects.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd and Team RENA. Finally, the wait is over. We bring to you the first session of our Blue Horizon series, an inspiring fireside chat with our chief guest, Admiral Karambir Singh. I request our Director, HoD, and our Secretary Navneet to occupy the front rows. I invite Arushka Jain, the Secretary of Team Oceana and the moderator of this session, to proceed with the same.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you to this fireside chat with one of India's most distinguished Navy officers, Admiral Karambir Singh. He has been the CNS of the Indian Navy, and he has had an illustrious career spanning over 4 decades, during which he has held various key positions, and he has demonstrated excellent leadership skills and a deep commitment to the Navy's core values. He's also a recipient of several awards and decorations, including the Param Vishist Seva Medal and Ati Vishist Seva Medal. He has also received the Operation Vijay Medal and Operation Parakram Medal for his excellent service during the Kargil War in '99 and the Pakistan-India standoff in 2001. My name is Arushka Jain, and I'm the secretary of Team Oceana, which is the student organization of the Ocean Engineering Department at IIT Madras. And today I'm honored to have the opportunity to moderate this session with Admiral Sir and learn more about his experiences in his Navy career. Admiral Sir, thank you for joining us today. To get started, I would love to know how you got inspired to join the Navy. Can you share us a bit about your experiences and what has been your favorite moment in your career?
Thank you so much. I do want to listen to a very boring story how one joined. My father was in the Air Force, Indian Air Force. So watching him in uniform like these people in NCC uniforms, looking very smart. So that, of course, got me started. Looking at somebody, we lived a life which was simple, pursuit of knowledge, and in the armed forces, the life is simple. Everybody stays in the same kind of houses. Everybody's pay is the same. So you are basically your friendships, etc. The quality of life is different. There is no disparity in terms of financial things. So it's all good life, which I loved the life. Thought my father looked very handsome and smart in uniform, and I always had this desire to fly aircraft because one of my neighbors I remember there was a bomber called Canberra. In 1971 war was going on, and I'd often go with his son. He was a pilot. Go inside, wear his headset, and then act as if we are flying. So that whole ambition was there that we must fly. So my original plan was to join the Indian Air Force. But when I went to, I'd seen the sea earlier, but when I went for my entrance exam to National Defence Academy, I actually went to Mumbai and then saw the sea and got really fascinated by the sea. Then I spoke to my father. He said, why don't you pick the best of both worlds, go and join the Navy and fly from the decks of the Navy. So I think I've had a very fruitful career, enjoyable career. Didn't realize how 41 and a half years of life passed me by. In fact, I joined when I was 16 and retired when I was 61 and a half. So my entire life has been about flying, about being at sea, and it just went by in a jiffy. So if you enjoy what you're doing, life is a breeze.
That's really interesting, sir. And as you said, thalassophile, that really describes you. It's impressive to see how the Indian Navy has modernized since its inception in 1980s. Could you share what have been some of the key developments, according to you, which have been particularly impactful for the Navy?
Yeah, so Navy is, like I mentioned to you, it's technologically very sort of centered. And when we joined, I joined as a cadet in 1979. And since then, so many things have changed technologically. So if you look at, say, propulsion, the propulsion of our ships, then warships were primarily steam and diesel. Then we got the gas turbines coming in, nuclear propulsion coming in, and IFEP, the integrated full electric propulsion coming in. The combined diesel and gas, combined diesel, gas and electric. So propulsion really showed so much of change over a period of time. When you talk of weapons, weapons were mainly very rudimentary weapons in the Navy. There were guns. We then moved to the missile age, when we had surface-to-surface missiles, surface-to-air missiles, went ahead. Now when we are looking at things like directed energy weapons. So the weapons, the whole thing has completely changed over a period of time. When you look at electronics, that has been the fastest changing. We started with, valve-based equipment, went to solid state. Now we are talking of, we are already in software-defined, and then we are going to cognitive radios, for instance. When you look at material or steel, we used to have steel which was imported. Then our DMRL, that is Research Laboratory, Material Research Laboratory, and NMRL, they came up with different steels. Today, India proudly builds its own steel. The Vikrant, which was commissioned last year, is built by Indian steel. And our submarines, nuclear submarines, etc., all of them are being built by Indian steel. And now from steel, we've then moved on to composites. Composites are extremely important for us because they're lightweight, especially to reduce the top weight of the ships. So technologically, we have moved generations. Of course, I'm not even talking about cyber, space, and a whole lot of other issues that have completely permeated the Indian Navy. And when you look at the manpower or the personnel who are joining the Navy, initially our officers were matriculate entry. Our sailors were also matriculate or even below that. They were 8th standard pass. Today, every naval officer is a B.Tech. It is a conscious decision taken by the Navy. Every sailor of ours is either 10+2 or diploma holder. So things have changed. Women have joined. That's been a big change. So Navy has, like all other organizations, has changed and improved over the decades that I have served.
That was very impressive to hear about the advancements made by the Navy. So the COVID-19 pandemic has affected so many industries and organizations. I'm interested to know how the pandemic affected the Navy and how did you and your team adjust to these situations?
COVID is a black swan event. So it took us all by surprise, everybody. And we were grappling with the COVID, ships, submarines. Submarines, there are 40 people, in very close proximity of each other. So ships are all centrally air conditioned, everybody stays on board. So it was a big problem for us to manage, to control this particular pandemic and to contain this pandemic within the Navy. Just when we were grappling with COVID, China's, the Galwan happened, and it put a lot of pressure on us operationally also. So what we realized is there are two ways human beings or organizations can react to a kind of an emergency. One is to start looking inwards and trying to put our own house in order, or to start looking outwards. So as a Navy, we decided we will look outwards. This is what the nation expects of us, and the region expects of us. So we, as far as the nation was concerned, wherever we could help out, setting up hospitals, repairing oxygen generators, wherever we could help out technically, we helped out. Commodore Golaya is here. He and his team did a fantastic work. I think we patented the, what is that? PPE. Ours was one of the first PPEs to be recognized. So the Navy had made that. So inwardly we started doing this. For our country, we also decided that we'll control this pandemic on ship, but we will get all our people who are stuck. There were poor people stuck in Iran, Sri Lanka, Maldives. We picked up all of them on our ships and brought them. Whilst, of course, large amount was being done by Air India and things like that, but we also decided to do that. We didn't stop only for the country, we decided to look after the region. So we started something called the Samudra Setu Saga series, wherein we delivered vaccines, medical teams to various island nations like the Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mozambique. We went to Mozambique also. So that is the kind of effort that we did. We tried to convert this adversity into an opportunity to help out the country, the nation, and the region. You must have seen photographs of our ships bringing those huge oxygen cylinders, massive cylinders which were coming because they couldn't be brought by air. When we needed it in the second wave, we brought a lot of them, and when our neighbors required them, then we transferred to them. So I think COVID was a pretty avoidable experience, but we tried to make the best of it. And the Navy learnt a lot, and we were able to contribute to the nation's effort.
I can imagine it must have been a very challenging situation, but it's good to hear that the Navy could make amends and overcome the situation. So now for the audience, Admiral Sir was named the CNS in 2019, and this is the first time that a helicopter pilot was named the CNS of the Indian Navy. So flying helicopters must be quite an adventure. So has there been any memorable incident which you would like to share?
Lots of memorable. Actually, the difference between flying helicopters from I actually joined helicopters because I wanted to stay on ships. So if you joined the maritime reconnaissance or the big aircraft, they operate only from land, naval aircraft. When I joined, it is an interesting experience. Landing a helicopter on land is simple, but when you land it on at sea where the ship is rolling, pitching, yawing, heaving, so you have to coordinate all the movements, land, take off, and especially when you're doing it in the dark night. Dark night, there are no visual references, so you're entirely based on instruments. I remember once I was flying, it was a dark night, pitch dark night, and it is very disorienting. You cannot trust your instincts because your body will be telling you you are banking right by 30 degrees, but actually you are straight. So you're not supposed to go out by your feelings, you're only supposed to go by instruments. And I just peeped outside and I saw ships above me. So that's very disconcerting because you wonder whether you're underwater because the ship is above you. But actually that's called the fishbowl effect, which happens because when the helicopter is moving forward, you are angled like this, so your reference becomes different and you start feeling there. So that's when your training comes into, kicks in, and you say, okay, don't rely on all this, go by instruments and come back and land safely or do your mission. So it was a very interesting experience, being at sea, being on a helicopter, doing your missions. You're all alone. You and your, the Kamov helicopter which I flew was single pilot, so there's no other pilot to help you. You're all alone. You have to do what you have to do.
Wow, that must have been quite an experience. Sir, your unique perspective has clearly been pivotal in shaping India's maritime interest. How fulfilling or rewarding has that been for you? And how do you think your own personal perspective has shifted throughout your tenure?
As you grow in any organization, you have to keep changing. You have to keep evolving. So when I'm in the Navy, like for example, all of you are there, you are all in your own community. It's very easy to come across to people. So in the Navy, when I talk to, say, Gulaya or to Vijay, so it's all very simple. I use one language and everybody understands it the same way. But as you grow higher in service and you have to interact, for example, from the maritime point of view, there are about 25 stakeholders, different ministries handling maritime issues. So when you go to the top position, there you have to be able to speak and be understood very clearly because everybody understands what you say differently because they come from a different experience. So that is what I learned, how in a democracy you have to have patience, you have to have the ability to convince, to inspire, to educate if necessary before some decision is taken. There is no top-down order like you do in the Navy, but there is a very consultative, collaborative way. So as people, when you join startups, you will have to look at various issues. One is the excitement of just producing getting a product. But when you try to sell it to the user, you got the finance fellows, you got a whole lot of other people. That is when you require different skill sets. And sadly, India is, to my mind, is still sea blind, because a lot of the people who are in policy making decisions sit in Delhi. So they don't have that vision of the sea. What is the importance of the sea? And that again has to be drummed in when we go as a Navy or as a maritime person. Trying to convince them that, you know, the sea is where your prosperity lies, the future lies, and why we must invest at sea. Just to explain to, when I was explaining to the National Security Advisor, Mr. Doval, I told him that, you know, when you look at energy, the oil coming, if you look at a very large or ultra large crude carrier, it carries oil which is equivalent to 100 goods trains, not wagons, 100 goods trains. A container ship which is coming, it carries $2 billion worth of equipment or goods. So that is the kind, when somebody says, okay, you have to protect the ship going through some areas which are, you know, volatile, that is the meaning. If one, when something gets, say if the Straits of Hormuz, which is near Persian Gulf, you know where the Straits of Hormuz? Okay, it's near Iran. If there's a problem between Iran and the US, the Lloyds hikes up the cost of the energy that you're getting, the fossil fuel that you're getting. And $1 increase in a barrel of oil sets our GDP back by 2 billion, that is nearly 10,000 or 12,000 crore rupees. So that is the kind of effect that it has. To explain to them that 99% of all financial transactions, communications, everything that you're doing is coming through submarine cables is something most people don't know. Everybody thinks it's through some satellite. No, it's all coming through undersea cables. Why undersea cables are important to be protected? You are aware that there are people targeting our undersea cables. So these are issues that take a lot of time, effort, energy to convince. So this is what I learned, I think, as I grew in service, how to convince, how to get people to buy in, to understand that the seas are important and they have to be secured.
That was very insightful. Truly said that wisdom ripens with experiences. Mostly, yes. As the former Director General of Project Seabird, could you discuss the strategic advantages of expanding the project and creating the largest naval base of the East?
Yeah, so this is a long dream of the Navy, and incidentally, IIT Madras has been involved in Seabird. In the 1980s, early 80s, we realized that Mumbai, which is our main port on the west coast, was getting congested with too many ships. The infrastructure was aging. We had dry docks which were built in 18 something, and there was no way that we could expand. Also, there were some geographical disadvantages of Mumbai. One, it was very close to Pakistan, so it was vulnerable to attacks from Pakistan. That time Pakistan was our main enemy. And the sea coast, the sea bed was a continental shelf. The depths were very gradual. So there was a lot of work done. We scouted around and found this base in Karnataka, Uttar Karnataka, called Karwar. And there are a lot of advantages. Natural advantage was that there is no siltation that takes place. You're aware of the kind of problems siltation causes. A lot of money that is involved in maintenance, dredging, etc. Second, it was closer to the south, which is where the Indian Ocean region has to be dominated, and for future challenges like China, etc. It had a steeper depth contour, so our submarines that were moving out could quickly dive instead of going on surface for very long, including our big ships could be accommodated. So therefore, this whole project came up. It was about a 25,000 crore project in different phases. Plan is to base 50 ships and yard craft there, have a naval dockyard there for ship repair. We have a ship lift, one of the largest ship lifts of the country, where a ship is lifted actually and brought and repaired. We are making an airfield there. We've got ammunition depots, 10,000 houses. So it's a big, huge township plan. And it's about about half of it has already been done. And people have already started using it. So it's a big project where IIT Madras has been involved. When I was the Director General, we approached IIT for a lot of our structural drawings, etc. And we got a lot of help from IIT Madras.
That was very informative. It's impressive to hear about the scale and strategic importance of this project. The Navy has been involved in a lot of joint exercises with other navies, including the recent Malabar exercise. So, how important are these exercises, and what have we learned from these?
Actually, Malabar has started in 1993. It was started with the US Navy, and then gradually we added on the Japanese Navy and the Australian Navy recently. Initially they were, they used to just take part, and then they become now part of the regular members of Malabar. So these are, we call them combined exercises. We don't call them joint. Joint we refer as when Army, Navy, Air Force does together. Combined exercises are with other countries. So we stand to gain a lot from, it's like when you interact with institutions, educational institutions from other countries, you pick up best practices. We have, and the exercises are not only at sea. We have a initial planning conference, we have a final planning conference, we got subject matter expert exchanges, so we have discussions, we have lectures on certain important issues. And when we then operate together, we understand how their operating procedures are, pick up best practices in maintenance, in operations. And slowly, I think the whole aim of these exercises is to build trust. As you keep building trust, then the complexity and the scope keeps increasing. So one is that we build trust. Second, we build interoperability. Aim is to become not only interoperable, interchangeable. That means my helicopters, Indian naval helicopters, should be able to operate from US Navy ships. Similarly, and vice versa, Japanese, Australian. So our aim is that. And in case there's one big hurdle still that we have to overcome, that is we have something called the combat management systems, which are basically today's networked environment. There's no time to talk on, wireless, etc. It is all done automatically, data linked, everything is done. So that is still not happened between us. And the other three are data linked. We are not data linked. Once that happens, I think we'll be able to, in case push comes to shove, we'll be able to do high-end operations together. So that is where we want to progress.
It's great to hear that the Navy is working on building trust and interoperability. We have heard that you go by the nickname KB among your colleagues. Is there any interesting story behind it?
Nothing, there's nothing at all. My name is Karambir, so it's, I think, a little long. So everybody gets a nickname. In fact, earlier in our service, we always use the surname and the initials. The initials meaning A Golaya or something like that. So that's how I got my name. There was nothing really. There's no real secret about it.
The Navy has been exploring exciting new technologies like artificial intelligence and robotics, like you spoke earlier. So how is the Navy collaborating with educational institutes like IIT Madras to advance these technologies?
No, there are MOUs that are happened, and I think Commodore Golaya will be able to explain better what all has happened. A lot of work is happening on this. Like I told you, it's a triangle: academia, the industry, and the user. So we are very keen that our startups, the entire defense ecosystem is built up, right? From the DRDO to our bigger industries to startups, everybody. In fact, I was even looking at, my suggestion was to make the Navy as a venture capitalist also, so that we are able to fund startups and get things done. So everything possible is being done to get the new technologies like, and AI is going to be ubiquitous. I mean, going to be there everywhere. There are a lot of areas where we have a lot of data which can feed into AI. Like we have maritime domain awareness, where very, very large inputs are available, which are amenable to AI. But we have to also work before we get into using AI well, to get a data-driven Navy. So everything on have enough data so that it can feed into the AI. So that's also one effort that is happening. Getting together with academia and industry is also happening. I just spoke about that Swavalamban seminar. That was the aim. 75 ideas were asked for. I don't know how many have happened. We must invite people from IIT Madras for the Swavalamban. At least that will help, and we must interact more. And that's the only way. That's why I mentioned about this military and civil fusion. If you don't have that, then and today what has happened, another thing, that realization that has dawned onto us is that earlier the defense technology was the front runner. You had NASA, you had DARPA, etc., which were feeding into commercial tech. But today commercial tech has gone well ahead of defense tech, and there's lots that defense can learn from application of civilian technologies in defense. That is also one of the jobs that the NIIO and Directorate of Indigenization is doing to get this. So the scope is tremendous, and we really look forward to interacting with all of you at for any given, not only when you're students here, when you go out and join the industry, open your own startups, become unicorns, whatever. We are very keen to be associated with the academia.
That's really exciting. It sounds like the Navy is on the cutting edge of technology and innovation. You have held a variety of different roles throughout your career. Can you share what has been your most valuable lesson you have learned from these, and what new do you learn from each of these roles? How do you like approaching these new roles?
Actually, when you the Navy has given me the opportunity to do a whole lot of different roles, whether it's leadership role, whether it's as an operator. So what somebody told me, that person gave me an advice which he never followed, but I followed. That advice was that don't take yourself seriously, take your job seriously. So when you approach any thing, please don't worry about your personal ambition. If you want to have a personal ambition, your personal ambition should be to do this job well, or undertake this responsibility well. And that is how I have approached, with a sort of a positive attitude, with an attitude to do my best for the responsibility that I've been given. I mean, I'm talking about myself. Sometimes when you take a destroyer command, it costs about nearly 10,000 crores. You got 400 people on board. You have equipment, and the entire charge is given to you. So it's a huge responsibility. So there's no time to think of anything else but to focus on how to get the best out of the machine, the personnel that have been given to you to achieve the role of the Navy. So you've got to have positivity, you've got to have energy, you've got to delegate. So a whole lot of things that you have to do. And each job teaches you something or the other. The advantage or disadvantage both of being at sea is that you are all alone. When you go out at sea, your problems are yours. You have to sort it out yourself along with your team. So that's why the team spirit comes up. So this is what I think I've learned, and this is how I think all of us must approach any responsibility that we are given.
These sound like really valuable lessons. I wish all of us could have a mindset like you. The Navy has been involved in a lot of humanitarian and disaster relief missions, which can be challenging while balancing it with the national security objectives. So can you share what challenge has the Navy faced, and how does the Navy deal with it?
HADR is humanitarian assistance, disaster relief is one of the roles of the Navy. We believe in it and we prepare for it. You must be aware that we had this 2004 tsunami. That is where birth of this squad, which people keep talking about, happened. Each HADR mission that is there is important, not only within the country, outside the country, whether it was the cyclone and the cyclones which are hitting Southwest Indian Ocean region, whether it was the water shortage in Maldives, various things. We look at it as an opportunity. Why do we look at it as an opportunity? Is because if we are not useful to our neighbors in the region in times when they require it, then we're not able to knit ourselves as a neighborhood. I mean, it's applicable even in your own colony, and when your neighbor is going through a crisis, if you don't help that person out, then you don't build that bond. So the aim is India's aim, security, which is the national security objectives. One of the national security objectives is to keep the Indian Ocean region as a well-knit region, not to cause schisms here, which countries like China, etc., can exploit. So when we do HADR missions, we go outside, help different countries. Aim is to make them friends, build trust, and make sure that we don't have these kind of crevices or cracks in our relationship, which the countries like China, etc., can exploit. So it is serving actually both the purposes of altruistic purpose and national security objective purpose.
It's great to hear that the Navy is so committed to its humanitarian and relief missions. So, sir, for the students at IIT Madras and similar institutes who wish to join the Navy in near future, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, we would love to have IIT graduates in the Navy, because I don't know, if you actually, once you go into the Navy, you realize what kind of opportunities. We had this ad called Oceans of Opportunity. For all of you, there are oceans of opportunity in the Navy, I can tell you. Starting from in the marine field, your marine engineering, ship design, submarine construction, ship construction, repairs, ship construction, aeronautical engineering, unmanned, IT. So there is so much to do in the Navy. It's basically a technology-oriented service, and if you come there, and you will find that there is so much of job satisfaction. We have everything, starting from the R&D which is going on. We have people doing networking, varied systems, getting them all together. We have organizations like WESI. We are working in close linkages with DRDO. So there is so much to do, and if you have the inspiration to serve the nation and also enjoy the fruits of technology, I think the Navy is the best combination.
That's really valuable advice, and we are glad to hear that there are opportunities for collaboration between academia and the Navy. So now we will be moving to the Q&A session of the Fireside Chat, and I would like to invite the audience for participation. If you have a question for the Admiral, please raise your hands and the managers will come to you with the mics, and we will try to take as many questions as time permits. Please keep in mind that we want a respectful and inclusive environment, so please refrain from asking any offensive or controversial questions.
Good morning, Admiral. I'm Aryan, an undergrad here at IIT Madras. You've spoken quite often in numerous talks about a defense diplomacy fund and sea forward.
Just a little louder, I can.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'll just go again. Aryan, IIT Madras, undergrad here. You've spoken quite often about a defense diplomacy fund and sea forward diplomacy with India as a net security provider in the IOR. How did Sri Lanka's crisis impact Indian maritime diplomacy, if it did, and what did the Navy do to circumvent that? I think that is my question.
Yeah, thanks, Aryan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Sri Lanka, Actually, if you ask me, 10 years back, we were pretty lethargic in terms of how we engaged our neighbors. We were, if I can use the word, complacent. It is only the China challenge that has woken all of us up. We realized the kind of money that they were pumping in, their Belt and Road Initiative, the loans that they were giving at certain. They were following a system, very opaque system. If you see, if you look at the Hambantota or the Colombo project, their Belt and Road Initiative is pretty opaque. We are not aware of the kind of their interest rates are high. The only Chinese companies and Chinese workers can do this. So it's a game plan that they have. They select countries that have that are in trouble in terms economically. Like for example, Pakistan and Sri Lanka got into trouble. Of course, it was a combination of bad luck and poor management. They went in for natural fertilizer, which backfired. There, the COVID came in. The tourism industry packed up. So it was a sort of a combination of bad things, which less resilient economies could not take. But China took advantage of that, and for us, it's a big geopolitical loss if Sri Lanka is not self-reliant and is not strong. So therefore, if you see now, India has given a lot of assistance to Sri Lanka. Japan, France and India, they've got together now to make sure that they resolve the debt crisis in Sri Lanka. Because Sri Lanka is sitting right at the base of India. You might not know this, but Colombo Port, 80% of what Colombo Port, container port handles is for India. So all our containers that are coming to Colombo and then they are transshipped to India. So it's very important to us. There's a very strategic port called Hambantota, which if the debt is not managed properly, the Chinese would want to get it as debt for equity or debt for sovereignty. They might want to take that over. So we are cognizant of that. The government is cognizant, and they're working hard to make sure that Sri Lanka is protected from this entire onslaught of the economic onslaught that has happened, and China is partly to blame for that. Does it answer your question?
I would like, if you don't mind, a bit more on how we have evolved our maritime diplomacy to respond to it. Because I remember a very beautiful write-up by you, sir, on the defense diplomacy front. And I did not hear a lot of talk about it afterwards. So is that something that we can see in the future?
Defense diplomacy. Defense diplomacy is an extremely important part of our role. What we do is, we know what our intentions are. One is that our Prime Minister has talked about SAGAR, which is security and growth for all in the region. Second, we have a focus is on neighborhood first. Third, we are looking at Act East. So these are the guiding lights for us in defense diplomacy. What we do is, as a Navy, a ship can train its guns or missiles at a person. It can also host the head of the state for dinner. So it's got a complete, it can do many roles. And we are doing that. We are doing that through a combination of, we call it capacity building and capability development. Capacity meaning we built floating docks for Sri Lankan Navy. We are giving them ships. We have built OPVs for them through our dockyards, shipyards. And when you talk about capability development, it's training. We are doing a lot of training for Sri Lankan naval people. So these are the components of defense diplomacy, which are complementing this larger issue of security and growth for all in the region, neighborhood first, etc. There are several initiatives that have been taken, but it will take me a long time to tell you, but we are at it with every nation around us so that we complement what India's foreign policy is. Therefore, we call it defense diplomacy.
Namaste, sir. My name is Shubham. I'm from Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. Sir, I think the British ruled us because at that time we don't think about like of colonizing aspect, because we don't build a navy, army. We have army, but now we have a strong navy, strong army, and everything in military aspect. But still, sir, why our Indian policies is like not too much aggressive? Like as you mentioned about China, they use wolf warrior diplomacy and cabbage wrap technique. Sir, so my question is that like they are as you mentioned Belt and Road Initiative, they are violating our national integrity, our map. Like we show that part of Jammu and Kashmir in our map, and they are making road there, and they are changing name of Arunachal Pradesh, which we claim that is our, and we still do lot of economic activity with them. Why I'm telling that now? Because now we have all power. We are like nuclear power, and still we are afraid. Like there was Taiwan was there, and we didn't recognize. We didn't even send our embassy there just to make a good relationship with them. So sir, they didn't even respect us in that kind of manner. So why do even do this kind of thing with China? And to defeat them in every aspect, be it economy, be it army, why don't we expand our military surrounding like a Djibouti in Africa? And as you mentioned, an African nation, why don't we build our ports? Like string of pearls theory, they are surrounding us, and still we are waiting to, as you mentioned, the economic zone, 200 nautical miles. They follow the 9-dash policy in the South China Sea, and they completely violate the integrity of Vietnam and other island. And so sir, my question is like, to beat them, we have to follow and we have to think like them. So what is our Indian government doing regarding them? So sir, why we are not building ports in African nation or the Polynesian country? What our Navy is doing regarding them? Thank you, sir.
It's a very interesting question, Shubham. It's not that India is not doing anything. India is doing a lot of things in this field, and that is why when I talked about sea blindness, a lot of effort took place to explain this whole thing that, you know, the Chinese juggernaut is moving in every fashion, in a very aggressive fashion. They follow they've got a middle kingdom mentality, wherein you are the center of the earth, everybody is your, subordinate or vassal state. That is what they would call it. So they have a different viewpoint on the world. We have a different viewpoint on the world. And as India, we've got a viewpoint that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We would like to prosper along with everybody else, not in exclusion to everybody else. And what India is doing is very smartly. There's a comprehensive national power difference between China and India. You're aware of. I mean, today China, if I talk about naval power, China is building one Indian Navy every 4 years. So that is the kind of power they have. So there's no point going and banging your head against them. So you don't confront China. If you recognize Taiwan, you are confronting China. If you contain China. What is the aim of China? China wants to become a global power. How will it become a global power? One is to reach out to the world. That means that is why the bases, because the markets, resources, energy, everything is coming. If you look at China map, either China goes to its east. There's nothing there. It has to come west. And west is towards us. Towards Africa, towards Europe. Africa for resources, Europe for markets, Southeast Asia for markets, South Asia for markets, the West Asia for energy. So they have to come this way. So that is why we have things like the Quad. Now Quad, people think, if the navies are involved, that's the only way. No. But you're looking at very important issues. You're looking at making sure that supply chain resilience is built in which case, whatever the point was that by mistake or whatever, too much of too many eggs were put into China's basket. Now slowly we have to diversify. We have to get out of that first. Second, the movement of China, which is to the west, that is like you're talking about Djibouti, etc., has to be checked. So India is doing that. We've got a couple of ports, which I can't talk about openly, but there are ports that we are building to check Chinese expansion. Why is our External Affairs Minister in Mozambique? Mozambique is going to give us LNG. 40% of our LNG, because we have to break away from the Qatar, Qatar is the single sole provider of LNG for us. So on a twin track, this thing, one is build our own comprehensive national power before we start taking on China. That is by getting our economy going, building enough resilience, knitting the neighborhood together, all these, and intelligently containing China by bringing out, like for example, the BRI. Now BRI is being countered by IPEF. That has been launched between US, large number of countries which have come together. We are trying to make sure that we have a parallel. You can't just keep telling BRI is bad, BRI is bad. You have to have an alternative to BRI. So that is what alternatives are being made. AAGC, IPEF, these are all Build Back Better World. That didn't work out. So we are working on it, but the speed, the advantage China has is that they've got sharp power. All instruments of state can be aligned together to achieve what they want. Whereas we are in a democracy. So like Xi Jinping says, this is a chaos of democracies because they're not able to move as fast as what China is doing. So we've got a challenge, but it's not that we're completely sleeping. We were sleeping. The whole world was sleeping for about 10, 15 years back, thinking that China is benign. If you get them economically more enmeshed, things will be good. But now we have seen what they are up to, and the world and India is fast waking up and taking action to counter this challenge.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Jai Hind. Actually, I do not have any question. It's more like a fanboy moment. I want to tell you, sir, that you have been a real inspiration to me, and you are the superhero I want to become in the future. Oh God, I feel nervous. And sir, I want to join Indian Armed Forces as an officer after I graduate, and I would like to meet you in my Air Force uniform after that. That's it, sir.
Why not? Why not naval uniform? Thank you.
Hello, sir. This is Karthik. How is the Indian Armed Forces is preparing for the upcoming period of transition? Like we saw the recent domestic military reorganizations, like creating a post of Chief of Defense Staff. So how is the Indian Armed Forces is why like this post is how it's impacting on the Indian Armed Forces and the foreign policies and the problems we have with the neighboring countries. That's what.
Yeah, this is one of the most important reforms that have happened. There are two reforms that took place. One was the institution of the Chief of Defense Staff, and one was the Department of Military Affairs. So, in the government, only departments can do business. I mean, they can interact. So the armed forces and the military people were attached offices. It's only the bureaucrats who could transact business in the government. So first reform that has happened is the Department of Military Affairs. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff, as the Secretary DMA, has the ability to interact with other, like I told you, in the maritime space, there are 26 stakeholders. Now, if I, as the Chief of Naval Staff, cannot interact with them, it has to only through a secretary in the government of India, then there's too much of red tapeism. So that, fortunately, now has been removed with the Department of Military Affairs. And the CDS who's heading it, I think his primary job will be to have theaters, theaters for joint warfighting. What has happened is you've seen what is happening in Russia, you've seen in Ukraine, and the modern war has shown us that unless you put all three services, unless they plan together and they fight together, we are not going to achieve success. So the prime job is of the Chief of Defense Staff is to get joint planning and joint execution done by joining the Army, Navy, Air Force and Coast Guard together to form theaters. So there'll be theaters, I mean, it's not yet come out, but before this, there were at least 7 or 8 commands which were going to fight a war with China. Whereas China changed to theater, that means one person is controlling all action against India. Similarly, now we will be able to do that, so that we have a unified approach to war fighting. That will be the biggest success if that happens well. We are able to focus all our equipment, tactics, doctrines, everything to fight as one team.
Next question.
Hi sir, I am Annette Paul from Christ College of Engineering. My ambition is to become a pilot. I would like to know the experience of your experience on helicopter pilot. Sorry, I say helicopter pilot. I was a little nervous.
Thank you. Flying is extremely interesting. Helicopter flying is even more interesting because a helicopter is dynamically unstable as a machine. Because if you push it to the left, it will tend to come to the right and exceed. So it's not meant to fly actually, unlike an aeroplane. So aeroplane is dynamically stable. This is dynamically unstable. So it adds more complexity to flying. It takes a lot of self-discipline to be able to handle helicopter. First of all, to understand the entire helicopter dynamics. So this is your science person, you'll understand it quickly. And thereafter, how to operate it in different conditions. If you join, for example, the Air Force, you'll be flying at very high altitudes where there's no reserve of power. So you have to be very careful. There is no, once you make an approach, there's no way of going around. You're committed to landing. If you are operating in the valleys, there is bad weather, the winds are erratic, and it can suddenly become zero visibility. If you're operating in the deserts, you have very high temperatures, and when you come to land, the sand gets kicked up. So each place has its own challenge. It'll be a very interesting life. At sea, of course, like I told you, there's very high humidity. Again, the reservoir power is more at sea level, but because of the humidity, the performance and temperatures, the performance of the engines and the machine changes. And of course, very importantly, the area on which to land, the kind of turbulence that is generated by a ship's wake, all this makes things very difficult, very challenging, but also very interesting. So I'm very happy that you want to become a helicopter pilot. Please go ahead. My full marks to you.
In view of time, we'll be taking just one last question. So,
hello, sir. I am Ishwar. So, in recent years, the government has promoted privatization of the defense. So, like, what are your views on privatization of defense and its future?
When you say privatization of defense,
yes, sir, so they have signed licenses with many companies for manufacturing.
That's the way ahead. We had defense, the public sector undertakings that were mainly doing defense production. They are very inefficient. And we need to get efficiencies. We need to get agility. We have to catch up with times. Technology is moving. You know how fast technology is moving, how fast electronics is moving. That is the crux of modern day warfare. how we can incorporate civilian technologies. All this can only come through young, agile people, which is the private industry, the startups. And I think it's an extremely good step. Only thing is we have to support the private industry. That's why I keep talking about venture capitalism. We have to give money. Money is what matters if they have to produce. And once you make a product, then how do you mass produce it for requirements? So this is what you have to think through. Make policies that are not very cumbersome. We have to accept failure. I remember when I went to DARPA, and there was a director. She was an Indian only. So we asked her, what is the success rate in DARPA? So she said 10%. So just 10%, and most of the ideas, they fail. So the ability to hold hands, pay money, they got people from Silicon Valley, they were working on these things, but they were accepting because they were challenging the status quo, challenging bringing in new path-breaking ideas. So success rates have to be low. So we have to have the ability to accept that, absorb this, give enough money, enough incentive to young people like you all to produce to come up with ideas. That's the only way. I'm very, very supportive of this idea of privatization, because the DPSUs had become too big. They had become like dinosaurs. They were only feeding themselves, and there was nothing much coming out from them.
Thank you, sir.
We will now be closing the Q&A session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and insights with us. It was an honor to have this fireside chat with you. Thank you, audience, for your lovely participation and engagement. And now I'll be handing the mic over to Navneet for the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself.
Respected Admiral, Professor Rajiv Sharma sir, invited faculties and my dear friends, I on behalf of Oceana and the entire Department of Ocean Engineering extend my hearty thanks to everyone present here. I feel deeply gratified and thank Admiral Karambir Singh for accepting our invitation and for gracing the occasion. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our Director Professor V. Kamakoti for presiding over the event. It is my honor to thank all the faculty members and students present here. I would like to thank Reena for associating with us and our sponsors KMEW, Vedam Design, ITD Cementation, Invent Ocean, Conceptia, and our alumni for extending their support. We thank the ICSR staff and the security section for their technical assistance in making this event hassle-free. We sincerely thank NCC Cadet J.W. Santosh Kumar for guard mounting the Admiral. Finally, I would like to thank the entire team which worked hard towards making this event a success. Once again, I thank you all.
Thank you, Navneet. Finally, I'm very grateful to the audience for their constant enthusiasm throughout the event. I wish the entire event all the success, and I hope you guys would definitely have fun exploring the events. Now, I would request the audience to stand for National Anthem.
Janagana mana adhinayaka jaya he Bharat bhagya vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchchala Jaladhi Taranga तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
We have arranged light refreshments for the audience. I request the audience to be patient and enjoy the refreshments as we got a whole lot of excited events for you. Thank you. So, On this memorable day, we would like to click a picture with you. I request the team members of Oceana to get on the stage.
They are in the department project. You should be there, right? You're the secretary. Go and stand.
Cadets.
Oh, but you're the secretary. You should be there in all the books.
Hello people, we have light refreshments arranged outside. You can enjoy refreshments and we have pretty exciting events as well. So you can go to OE department and take a look at them.